Okay, so before we move on, I'll very quickly. I had a question from Nom Nom Mon saying that he couldn't set up the audio reactive part. I'm going to share the file at the end, so we're running out of time annoyingly, so I can't really answer that right now. But and again, Winfred, if you're having problems, if you want to lock your Connect tops and email me the file, I can have a look afterwards and just quickly and see what the issue is with your question as well. Okay, so yeah, we were talking, yeah, so Winfred, you also asked about the Pinata playground, which is the Basil, multicolored Basil. So the way I did that, just quickly before we move on, it'll be very fast, but you can always watch it back. So I used, rather than rendering spheres, what we did was we rendered tubes. So we actually used a tube, and you don't need to follow along this, anyone, I'm just going to explain quickly. So we rendered some tubes, and we made them really small radiuses, like really tiny radius, about 0.01, with tiny heights as well. And you can see here now, I've got this, it's a bit too much, but we kind of made it so it was almost like fur. We got it really small. And if I make this height really small, oh my God, super. There we go. So we had like something like that. Obviously, at the moment, I've got the effects going through. And one was 0, so it was kind of like this. And we had less detail to make it a bit faster. And I also had the end caps on. So if I just quickly, yeah, so I'll bring this down. It was even smaller, I think. It was absolutely tiny. I think it was like 0.001 or 0.05. So that gives us the sort of the spikiness. Sorry, yeah, I'll answer that in a second, David. So basically, yeah, so that gives you the spikiness. And then what I did was I just used some noise. And that noise was set to 640 by 360. And then I had the amplitude, no, don't open the questions. I had the amplitude set to 90 degrees or something crazy like that. And the period set really low down. And then when you hit rotate, oh, it's also not monochrome, it's multicolored. And then when you hit rotate, R, G, and B, then it should rotate everything. I don't know why it's not. Oh, because I'm not 32-bit. So there you go. So I had something like that, basically. I know it looks terrible here, but that's kind of how the effect was created, was by using really thin radiuses. And we had a lot more points. I actually had 1 million points for it. So that made it look like fur. So the fur was actually created just off a random direction. And then the color was done with the noise too. So the color was actually done on the same sort of style. So that's obviously really bright right now. For the Pinata, we had it a little bit less crazy. But yeah, we had something, I mean, that just looks trippy. But yeah, we had something like that. So that's kind of how we did the Pinata version. So you need a lot of points. It's really, it can get quite slow. I mean, it ran at 30 on my machine. You need a lot of points, and you need to, you can either calculate the normals if you're using a static depth map, or you can use the Kinect and just use random rotation, which is the other way of doing it. So sorry, that was a quick explanation of that, but yeah, yeah, we need to move on, unfortunately. And then David, you said about the fit, that was in here. Fit 1, fit 2, fit 3. If I go to the common page resolution, you just change this number to something else. And you need to make sure that if you change it for 1, you change it for fit 2 and fit 3 as well. You need to make sure they're all the same resolution. And you need to make sure the noise also matches that resolution. Everything has to be the same. Otherwise, the point cloud will break because it takes the resolution from those point clouds. Okay, so I'm going to have to move on because we've got 45 minutes, and there's a lot to cover in 45 minutes. So, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to close. I've saved the project already. I'm going to close it down, and we'll share this at the end for anyone who wants it. And I'm going to open up Cloud Compare. So for anyone, you don't need to follow along with this if you don't want to, but I'm just going to show a little bit about how we prep things before we bring them into Touch. So I've created some photogrammetry, and from the photogrammetry software, I've exported out some files. And the file that in question is in the assets folder in original scans, and we've got shrine.xyz and stairs.xyz. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use, you can use either. They're both this, like, you know, they're both similar. I'm going to bring in Shrine. So I'm going to go File, Open. I'm going to open up Shrine. And you see here, I have all this information, and I think it might be in the right order, but I'm just going to apply these coordinates, X, Y, Z, NX. Well, NX, Y, Z, I know is red, green, blue. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually just going to say red, float, green, float, and blue, float. So this is kind of what comes in. So I've got this really crazy, if I just left click, I can move around this point cloud. And you can see here that the point cloud is this weird color. And this color is, it's something called a scalar field. And what a scalar field is it's essentially like it's more dense. Where the point cloud is more dense, it's one color. And where the point cloud is more sparse, it's a different color. And it's quite handy to have these scalar fields for when you're, if you want to sort of say, I want to keep the detail around the window, but then I want the brickwork to be less, less dense, then you can use the scalar fields to resample. And I'm going to show how to resample randomly, but the scalar field option's in there as well. So what I'm going to do to start with is, I've got this cloud, and this cloud is, it's set to colors. On the left, if I select it here, I can see here that the colors are set to scalar fields. So if I want, I can choose RGB. And you can see there that now it's come in with the red, the green, and the blue, blue particles. And Cloud Compare is nice and fast. It's really quick for looking at static point clouds. It's really quite a cool tool for this. So there's a couple of things. First of all, the number of points. Well, at the moment, this one's actually got 300,000. The original, I must have done this wrong because the original actually has 20 million points. So we have 300,000 points, but I'll just show how to bring that. If you have like a huge point cloud with loads of points, I'll just show you how you can bring that down. So first thing you want to do is you want to choose which areas of the point cloud you want to keep and which areas of the point cloud you want to discard. And there's a great tool. If I go into Edit, and if I go into Segment, Segment just allows you to cut out sections you don't want from the camera. So I can click on Segment, and then I can just click and draw. Let's say I don't want this section here. I can like just click and draw that, right click. And now it's going to select this area, and then I can click on the top right here and segment that out. And when I hit tick, great, I've confirmed the segmentation, and it's back because it's still there, but it has segmented. So what I can do now is I can say, turn off this little checkbox, and now I'm only viewing the new clouds, the separated out sections. So it's kind of just separating those, it's splitting those two clouds out. And now we can say, turn this off, and we've got this new cloud. And we can see here, the new cloud has a point number of 273,526. So we've kind of brought out some points. But let's say we're running on a really slow computer, and we're going to go, okay, well, you know, this is a really big mesh. We want to bring it, point cloud. We want to bring this point cloud right down. So what we can do is we can go into Edit, and we can choose Subsample. And what Subsample allows you to do is it allows you to, you can bring the point cloud down by the number in terms of whether it's the distance between the points, or you can use random and you can choose how many points you want to have left. Now, the problem with instancing in TouchDesigner is that when we bring in instances, whenever we use our Connect point cloud, we want all of our point clouds to have the same number of points, because otherwise, if we want to blend between two point clouds, we can't, because one's a different resolution to the other, and it breaks the instancing in Touch, or it will make weird effects because one's smaller than the other, and you have to pull down to it. So what I normally do when in the initial video that I was showing on the first slide, what we did is we said, okay, well, let's make everything 300,000 points, or in that case, 5 million points, and then we'll blend between these two point clouds that have the same number of points. So if I was to choose 250,000 and I hit OK, it's actually going to bring this point cloud down to being 200, somewhere in here. Where's it gone? There you go, points, 250,000. So now we have 250,000 points in this point cloud. So that's quite cool. Like we can now bring that into Touch, and it will work. It'll work with another point cloud's 250K. So that's the kind of the thinking behind how you would use Cloud Compare to just do those little tweaks that you need in order to get things to work. And if you want, you can also do things like subsampling by scalar field. I mean, that's a tutorial in itself, but I would recommend maybe having a look at some of the Cloud Compare tutorials, because they explain how you can even generate meshes from PointCloud. So if you want to create a mesh, you can do that as well for bringing it in as a SOP. So that's one of the kind of cool things about it, is you can calculate normals, you can do things like that. So if you want normals, you want to rotate things to the normal, you can do that. So it allows you to do some, in fact, normals, you just go into plugins and you would go into here and say estimate normals and curvature, and it will estimate the normals. So that's, and then if you go Poisson reconstruction, that's going to create a mesh. It takes a little bit of time to create a mesh, so I'm not going to do that today. But yeah, you can play around with this before bringing in. So there's a problem though. The problem with point clouds, does it apply on only static images? You could probably set, I think you can, there's two apps here. There's Cloud Compare, there's another one called Mesh Lab. And I think with Mesh Lab, there's a command line interface for batching things. I'm not so sure if Cloud Compare has that, but yeah, I think you can. I think you can basically blend between, but with a point cloud, it's always going to be static images anyway. If you're doing a 3D scan, it's normally static unless you're using a LiDAR scanner. But if you're using a LiDAR scanner, normally those output an image anyway, like a 16-bit sort of image sequence. So that there's different ways of bringing things in. But yeah, so anyway, so this is for statics mainly. So the problem is when we bring in a point cloud like this, the problem is that with our Kinect, it's really easy because our Kinect has a coordinate system that's basically top left to bottom right, which means the top left is point ID 0, and the bottom right is point ID, whatever the total number of point IDs is. Now the problem with this is that these are random just points in space, and ID 1 could be over here, like somewhere else, and ID2 could be somewhere completely different. So this is the problem. The problem then is that when it comes to, if I want to send like a ripple through this point cloud, I can't, because it's not in the correct order. It's not sorted in a nice way. So what I've done is I've in here, we've got these prepared scans. We've got these 2 scans. And we've also got in TD Assets this other little app called Shifter Component. And this is a bit of a nasty, gnarly way of doing this. And again, I've spoke to Derivative about how can this be improved? Is there a way we can do this? Because the GPU in a shader, pixel sorting is kind of a bit of a weird way of doing things. So what we're going to do is I'm going to open a new TouchDesigner project. And I'm going to bring in this base shifter and show you how this works. So when it loads up. Okay, here we go. So I'm going to close down the palette, delete everything out, and then I'm going to bring in my tox files. This is called base shifter. It's in in assets, shifter component, base shifter, and it loads in. And you can see here, it's basically just it's a geometry component, and it has a few things here. You can choose a PTS or XYZ file. You can hit the reload button, which just loads that in. Then you've got things like translate, rotate, uniform scale, and you've got point sorting. So we can sort the points in terms of, we want the points to be from X, we want to send things across, so we want points to come out from a proximity to point, which means that when we start animating things or blending, it doesn't just like kind of go crazy and do something. It will blend from a position, or it will do something from that point. So yeah, so basically what I can do is I can load in. So I'm going to load in from TDSW assets, the prepared scans. I'm going to load in the shrine, and I'm going to hit reload, and that's going to load in. And this is the thing about this component, is I'm loading the point cloud into SOPs. I'm loading the point cloud onto the CPU, and you can see how slow. In fact, for some reason it didn't load, which is a good start. One moment. I've done something wrong, or maybe not. Oh, it is there. It's just miles away. Okay, so it's there. Sorry, it's my. There we go. So it comes in. So this is our point cloud, and you can see that the first issue we have is that our point cloud is nowhere near the origin. So in Cloud Compare, you can kind of translate things to the origin. It's a bit nasty and a bit gnarly. So what I do is I normally bring it into this app here. So I go, okay, well, you know, like in the, let's go to the right click on here and go to the front viewport. And we can see here that it's nowhere near the center point. So I'm going to bring it up. And right now we're working on the CPU. So everything's super slow. We're just preparing. We're preparing things to come back in as a point cloud. We're going to export this out. So when I bring this up, it's super slow. And for you, it might be even slower if you're on an older CPU. And then I'm going to say, okay, so I need to move it. You know, I probably need to move it about 5, or maybe more, maybe 10. Or you need more than that. There we go, 20. So that's like, you know, I've kind of aligned it in the front viewport. Now if I go to my right viewport here, I can see that in Z, it's not quite right either. So I'm going to move it about 10 or 20 in Z. And that's now kind of brought it roughly into where it's meant to be. So if I go back into perspective, you can see here that now I have a scan. It'd be nice to bring it up a bit to have the floor matched up with the actual floor. So if I just bring this up in Y as well, without going too high, then this will then work in terms of our perspective viewport. So there we go. So our scan now looks like it's in a good place. If I want to scale things to make it like a little bit smaller so it matches my other scans, then what I can do is I can say, well, you know, I want them all to be around about 10 pixels square, 10 units square. So I have minus 10 here, minus plus 10. So I can resize them to match each other. And then the most important part is I can do point sorting. Point sorting on the GPU, GPUs don't really think in terms of, you know, all of the thing as a whole. They think more as, here's a pixel, do some operation. Here's the next pixel, do some operation. So actually doing this on the CPU is easier than doing it on the GPU. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to sort all my points here, 0, 0, 0, proximity to point. And that allows you then to essentially, and you can reverse the point order or you can say X and Y. What it allows us to do is basically animate things across like we were with the Kinect, because otherwise we can't, because it's just random. So when I hit save file, it will save out a file in here in prepared scans. I now have shrine_modified.pts. So this PTS file should, in theory, now just be able to come in through the point file in top in TouchDesigner. So my base shifter has done its work. It's actually succeeded in what I wanted it to do. So now what I can do is I can delete it and I can go point file in and I can choose my new point cloud. So if I go into, into TDSW assets and I go into the prepared scans, Shrine. Cool, so you can see here, the red channel is completely black to white because it's now been sorted. So it's no longer random data, it's actually just a ramp because that's what I told the point cloud, the sorting system to do. So that's quite cool. Obviously there is a bit of a problem in that it's P0, P12, because that was the index, sorry, that was the index, not the X channel, just to point out. So yeah, so the red now is actually now in TouchDesigner notation. It's P0, P1, P2 for X, Y, Z. And then if I wanted to bring in my color values, then I can use a point file select and I can use red, green, and blue. And now we're back to the same setup we had for the Kinect. We're in the same situation. We've got 2 point clouds, and they're just using the point file in and the point file select, which is then referencing the point file in. But now we can say, right, cool. So we've got our channels. We can go and make, so we can start instancing again. So we can go into geometry, and because we have so many points this time, I mean, we've got 300,000 points. Then what I'm going to do this time is I'm just going to go in and I'm going to use an add SOP. And I'm going to say add points. And then I'm going to use a convert. And then I'm going to convert to particles per point. And then I'm going to turn on the render. And when I turn on my instancing now, so it's the same as the Kinect, we're just doing the same thing again. We're going to turn on instancing. We have our default instance op, which is the point file in. I can choose red, green, and blue. And you can see there it's come in. There's our point file. There's no color right now because we haven't set up color. So let's set up color. Let's go into instance 2. And we're going to use the color op as point file select, red, green, and blue. And you can see it's very dark because we have no material, but the colors are there. So if I lay down a constant matte or a point sprite, maybe, constant matte first, actually, let's do constant matte. And there we go. Our point cloud came into TouchDesigner. It's on the origin, it's the right scale, and everything is as it should be. Now, what's interesting is because we've sorted everything across from point 0, now I should be able to, in theory, be able to start animating this rather than, whereas before, because all the points were random, I couldn't, there's no hope of animating it, whereas now we have a good way of animating. And I could probably show that a little bit. One good fun thing is, yeah, if I want to split this out, I've got 3 channels. I've got the X, Y, Z, and I've got my, my red, green, blue. So I can either split this out or I can just start using the scale. But let's just split it out, and I'll just show how we can change, maybe make a wave across the Y position. So let's do that. So what we're going to do is we're going to reorder from this point file in. And you see when I bring in the reorder top shows straight away all 3 channels on top of each other. So I'm just going to make it I'm going to check it's 32-bit, which it is. I'm then going to set it to nearest pixels. And then I'm going to choose, I only want 1 channel here. So I want to split out my X, Y, Z channels into separate tops that we can then work with. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say, actually, rather than 32-bit RGBA, I'm going to make it a 32-bit float mono, wherever that is, 32-bit. I've gone mad and I can't find it. 32-bit thick float mono. Here we go. So there we go. I'm going to make it a mono channel. And in my reorder here, what I'm doing is I'm saying input 1 is now red. That's the red channel. So I'm taking the red channel and I'm converting it to a mono top. Is everyone following along, or has anyone got any questions as to what I'm doing here? It's a little bit, I understand it's probably like a little bit esoteric and a bit crazy, but hopefully after watching back a few times yeah, it's a little bit weird, but so anyway, so yeah, I think that's a good idea. Watching is probably better. So yeah, so anyway, so now if I can make the green channel on my second reorder, input 1 becomes green, and then input my third reorder can be blue. So what I have now is I have 3 monochromatic 32-bit tops, and they're all X, Y, and Z. So X and Z I'm going to keep the same. I don't really want to change them. I'm going to make them as they are. But Y, I think we want to add a bit of movement. Let's add a bit of like waviness. Let's add some noise and make it move. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to lay down some noise. The noise needs to be the same resolution as the real. It doesn't necessarily in this case, but we will do it anyway. It's a good practice to keep it the same. So it's 548 by 548 pixels. So what this noise can now do is we can now just add it to our reorders. This is similar to what we did in the Kinect situation with the scale, except this time we're doing it with the Y position of the point. So we're just going to make the points move. So we can take this static point cloud and give it some movement, give it a bit more of a sort of wavy feel. And just bear in mind as well with point clouds, obviously, if you have more than one and they all have the same number of points, you can just blend between them with a crosstalk. You can literally just blend through with your usual cross switch operators. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to, so I'm going to add this noise. I'm going to set the noise to offset of 0, amplitude of, I don't know, something low. And then I'm going to animate it again with me.time seconds. So now I've got this kind of wave moving through my points. And I haven't turned off interpolation here because it doesn't really matter so much in this case. At least I don't think it does. We'll find out in a moment. But yeah, so I got this animation. It looks kind of cool. We do want this to be set to nearest though. I'll add just for good measure. In fact, you know what? I'm going to keep everything to nearest as well because, you know, it's good to just keep that as is. So now we have 3 color channels. We want to be able to control X, Y, Z on here with these 3 color channels, but the instancing only allows us to use one op to control translation, which means we need to put them all back together into one file. And the reorder allowed us to split out these channels, and the reorder is going to allow us to bring them back in. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to lay down a reorder top. And this reorder top, we can say, okay, so X is this one. So let's put X into, oh, red, X and red is this one. Y and green is this one. And blue and Z is this one. And then what I can do is I can say in this reorder, I can say, well, input 1 is the red channel. But we want to get the green channel. Well, we want input 2 here. And we want the first channel. So let's say red. And then input 3, red, is going to be the blue. In fact, sorry, this wants to be red, green, blue, I think. Nope, that's right. Yeah, red, red, red. Cool. So what I've done now is I've said, you know, let's get this reorder and get these colors back together. So this needs to be a 32-bit floating RGBA. And now you can see we're back to kind of what we had out of the point file. If I lay down a null, it looks very similar, but it's got a little bit of animation in there. So now that I've got this back to how it should be, and also interpolate needs to be set to nearest pixel. Now that I've got this texture, I can now drag this texture, make a null, and I can say, you know what, this is now going to be my default instance of. And you can see here, all my points are now animating to the noise. In fact, if I turn off adaptive homing, it's going to be easier to see. And right now, it's kind of crazy. It's really sort of, you know, if I do something like if I adjust the period, you can see how it's sort of changing this, it's sending like a kind of a wave through. And we can change the amplitude, so we can make it really crazy. So that's going to give us sort of an animation. But what's happening here is it's, as much as the noise, it looks like it's kind of animating across, it's actually animating from 0 out from the center point. So if we sorted it by X, then the noise would look like it was flying through like this. But because I sorted it from 0 out, then it's just going to animate from the center point out. So it's going to look kind of weird. It's going to look kind of like it's pulling. In fact, if I view from the top, you might be able to see that. You can see how the wave kind of pulls out. So that's like one way of making a bit of animation on this. In fact, we can, if we bring the period back down and bring the amplitude, and you can change like the exponent, and you know you can fiddle around and get this looking kind of, you know, quite nice. But it just gives a little bit of movement to our point cloud. And again, we can do that the same with the scale of the points and the other, you know, the scale and the color. Sorry, I was meant to say color. So yeah, so you can do it with that. So that's how you would animate a point cloud statically. Now to blend point clouds, that means you just basically bring in another point cloud. So I've got 2. In fact, what I'm going to do is I'm going to plug this one into a null, and I'm going to just drag this null up to yeah, not default instance, sorry, to the color op. So I've got 2 point file ins, a point file in and a point file in select. So I've got another point cloud here. I've got this stairs point cloud. And I'm just going to bring it in as is. I'm not sure how it is in terms of the organization. But let's say I want to just blend between this and this. Then actually I can do that if I lay down a point file select. And then I drag my stairs on. Then I've got X, Y, Z And then I should have in here red, green, blue. Yeah. So now I've got my two XYZ operators and my two RGB. And then I can just use a cross. And I can cross between these 2 point clouds. And I need my cross. I just need to check that it's set to the nearest pixel. And it needs to be 32-bit, which it is. I need to check that they're the same size, which they are. Cool. So now when I hit the cross, they're going to get a blend. And you can see something going wrong here. You can see why I have this shifting tool is because this point cloud's miles away. It's all the way over here. So in order to blend between point clouds, dynamically, then I need to be able to have them in the same position. And that's where that shifting tool becomes handy. So actually, if I go back if I drag in my shifter again, then I can fix up this stairs model. I can go in to shifter. I can load in my stairs, hit reload. This is loading. Yep, and now when I hit right-click Home All, you can see here it's kind of miles away. So again, I'm just going to come into my viewports. If I go into the front viewport, I can fix a few things here. So I can make it 20 by 20. So that's going to just bring it back roughly into place in Z-axis. I want to bring it 20. Cool, so that's kind of roughly in the right place. It's kind of laid out correctly. So let's just save this out. And now when I go back into TouchDesigner, I'm in the same file. If I go back down here, I can reload in my stairs via the modified point cloud. Here we go. My point cloud select will automatically update here. No, it won't. I'm lying because I have an index channel now. So I need to just reorder these channels to be the same. And if I say red, green, blue. So now when I cross over here, the color channels you can see are horrible because it's still taking the color from the other point cloud. But in terms of the actual movement, you can see there that we can now blend between 2 point clouds without any issue, and they blend from 0, 0. And if we want to blend between the colors, then we can use the selects and put a cross on those two. Double check the, well, actually color doesn't matter about interpolation. And we can copy this cross to this one. Now we have this beautiful point cloud blending to this one. So does anyone have any questions about what I just did? Are we all good? Thanks. Yeah, it's cool. It's a cool effect. Oh, sorry, your frame rate's slower. Okay, yes. If I just blend really slowly there, you can see, yeah, that it kind of pulls in. So sometimes you might want to blend between 2 point clouds with different point numbers, in which case you need to set the instance count mode to manual. And you need to choose how many points you want. So I could say, I know I've got 300K, so I have 300,000 points. Point clouds on the palette. Any cool way to use them? Good question. What is point clouds on the palette? Where is that? Is that in tools? Camera movements. Oh yeah, let's do camera. Top layer. Really? Wait, hang on. Tools. What's the top layer? So, under derivative, really? I just have template. Under derivative. Oh, is this? Are you in the experimental? Okay. I don't know what that is. But anyway, let's under Oculus. Oh, point clouds, this one. Oh, so point generator, point merge, point render. Oh yeah, there's some things here actually. I didn't even notice those before. Also, the point generator is just for generating point clouds. That's very similar to what I said before. You do that with just some noise, and they've got a GLSL top, which is weird because you don't need a GLSL top to do that so much anymore, because you can just view it as points. But obviously there's something, the GLSL is doing something. Yeah, I mean, this is kind of similar to just working with noise tops and then converting. The point merge, yeah, I think what that's doing is just taking 2 point clouds and merging them. These are not really super, and then render is just a render setup. Like this is kind of similar to what we set up for the Kinect, for rendering point clouds. And is there any kind of, yeah, so we can, wow, it's quite a serious point cloud there. So yeah, we can view those, but this is kind of similar to what we've been doing today. It's just in palette form. And then the repacking, this is for sending to different computers and so on. You can use packing. That's a good point, actually. With packing, you might be able to render out your point clouds and then bring them back in. That's something I'd have to look into. That might allow you to do that. And then weights. Yeah, they're just kind of simple. These are quite simple, just examples of GLSL. I don't know why they're all done in GLSL, because you could probably do these easier, but I think rather than going through these, I'm going to go through how to do the camera stuff, because I think that's more useful for people. But it's good to see that they're there. I think repacking is something that maybe I could do a tutorial on one point. I'm going to have a look at that, because that might help with the rendering of point clouds. So yeah. Could use this for projection mapping. You can. In fact, Cloud Compare, I used to work for a projection mapping company, and we used to use Cloud Compare to prepare all of our LiDAR scans. So we would scan the room, we would use Cloud Compare to create the mesh, and then we would bring that into Maya, and we would restructure everything into a mesh. The only problem is it's very, very painstakingly slow. You have to recreate the mesh yourself by hand, which is the hard part. So like one time it took me 3 days just to get a mesh in the right place. So it's quite a slow process. So yeah, so anyway, so let's do some quick camera. We've got, how long we got? We've got 10 minutes. So I think we've got 10 minutes, is that right? And then I think I'm gonna just, yeah, go through cameras, and then I think we'll be kind of set to where we wanna be. So in the demo I was showing before, the way I was doing that was using the camera. I don't know if you guys have used the camera blend before. The camera blend just allows you to blend between 2 different cameras. So the way I was doing that before was, let's say I've got 2 cameras. So let's set up 2 cameras, and then we'll just blend between them. So if I go into I'm going to lay down a camera called Cam 1, and I just want to position this camera somewhere nice. So a good way to, go away zoom. Zoom's taking over my top panel. There we go. Okay, so we're going to go into the geometry viewer here. And then what I can do is so here's my camera. What I can do is I say, you know what, let's view somewhere nice. Let's have a camera here. Save view to Cam 1. That's saved the view to the camera. So now we've got that camera looking, that camera is now looking this way. And if I set the view, I'm going to give it 90 degrees field of view angle. Maybe not that much. I don't know, let's try. And then I'm going to set up another camera, Cam 2. And Cam 2 can be anywhere, right? I can just say, okay, well, I want camera 2 to be on my second point cloud, for example. So on my second point cloud, I can cross over into it using my cross. And then I can go into geometry viewer. And my second point cloud, let's view it from like here, right? So I got 2 cameras. I got a camera that, oh, yeah, that's good. 2 cameras in 2 different positions. I'm not sure what's going on with the adaptive homing, but yeah, I can plug those into my camera blend. So by default, the camera blend is set to blend, but we can also set it to sequence. And sequence will allow us to blend between our 2 cameras. So you can see there, our cameras are now sort of blending one to the other. So what I can do is I could tie that to the cross. So I could say, you know what, this cross, paste a reference. And maybe these want to be 45 degrees for the do. Sorry, I'm going fast now because I know we're running out of time. So yeah, so I've got this camera blend, and then when I cross, see there, it's now gonna, it's quite hard probably to show on Zoom because you guys are probably getting a very slow image. But yeah, it kind of blends between those two. It can be a little bit janky sometimes. So a lot of the time I use lookats. So I'd have them both. So let's say they both look at this null. This would be a better way of probably doing it. So if I look at the null, and now when I take my cross and I cross between, there you go. You can see it kind of pulls across. Feels a little bit janky on the animation, which it can do sometimes depending on how your camera is set up. But that's the easiest way of getting your camera blends in is to do it that way. And if I change my look at, then yeah, that's gonna. And then we could render this out, so we could make a render just to finish off in terms of where we're at here. We're gonna do a cam blend, and we've got. This is, we can make it glow, why not? Let's make it glow. We can add it to itself and then use a blur. And then that's going to give us a bit of glow on our point cloud. And now when I switch between this cross, you can see there it's now going to, oh, this camera's in a not very nice place. You know what? I'm going to make a different look at. And I'm going to bring this look at, not the camera, the look at down. Wrong camera. Yeah, so maybe this one looks like here. So yeah, so you can use the camera blend to do a lot of that kind of, if you tie it in with the movement, then you can get like nice movements between the two. Yeah, so I think that's it was, sorry for that being so quickly, so fast, but I mean, we only have 3 hours, so it's quite hard to get through everything I want to try and get through, you know. Are there any more questions before I kind of, if there's not, then I can show through a couple of little bits, maybe. Is everyone good? Okay. And again, I'll save this file actually, and you can have this file. Just going to save this as scans, and we can hand that over to you guys. So what else is there? I think we're pretty good. I mean, obviously on the instancing side, I think we covered quite a lot. But yeah, it's one of those things of like you'll jump into it. You can probably watch back, and if you get really stuck, then just email me because I'm always around. At the moment, I'm working in this kind of stuff a lot. So yeah, hopefully a derivative will give us some better tools for repositioning things soon. So that might be better. Oh, thanks everyone. I can see you all in the. Let's see you all in the chat. Say thanks. Thank you. Thanks for attending. And yeah, if you have questions, then please ask. And actually, what I'll do, since we've got like 5 minutes, we've got 5 minutes. So what I'll do is I'll just quickly show you guys really quickly through the network for the one that we just made at the beginning. So let me open that up, and that can be like a kind of final piece. So this is a video that we're releasing. I think Miyu's already released it on Instagram. Ramp and monochrome from the questions there. Yeah, you can use, so you can, if you want to just like work with video, you can use like a ramp. A ramp can be, so if I'll just quickly do this actually then instead. I'll answer the questions first. It's a circular. So let's say I've got like a ramp like this. This ramp, if you right click and go view as points, you can see there, it's quite crazy actually. It's just like one big long line. I wonder why that is. It should be, but what I can do is at the moment, because I've got it in red, green, and blue, what I want to do is I want to have a constant and then 2 ramps. So what I can do is I could say, it wants to be a UV map. So if I lay down, sorry, I'm going into GLSL, but if I lay down a GLSL shader, then what I can do is I can give myself a UV map. So to do that, I can say, well, you know, UV is going to be The vec4 color wants to be vuv.st. Right, and oh, hang on, what have I done? I'm doing this wrong. 1 second, sorry. vuv.st. This must be a vec4. It must be vuvst 1.0, 1.0, something like that. Get rid of that. All right, cool. So there's a UV map, right? So UV map's basically a load of points from 0 to 1. So this is from 0 to 1. Now a ramp in here is just one color channel. So let's say that we want to make our Y channel the ramp, then we can do that. So what I can do is let's just go back to view as image. So what I can do is this is our X and our Z. U and V will be X and Z. So what I can do is I can use my reorder, and I can say, okay, so you know what, let's do this one and this one. We'll actually just input 1, input 2. So input 1 is going to do X and Z. So that's going to do red and green is going to be blue. And then for the Y axis, we want to use the ramp. So we're going to say input 2, and we're going to say red. So now I get this. And in theory, this should, I mean, I haven't tested this, so it might not work. Oh, there you go. So now I've got a ramp making a point cloud. So I can set the value of this something low. And you can see here now that this ramp, if I turn it to mirror, so now I can create like ramps and stuff into point clouds just through using this UV map. So if you want to do ramps, or if you want to do sort of interesting shapes, then you can create those interesting shapes just in one axis as well, you know, make like kind of reliefs and stuff. And, you know, if I want to animate that, I can animate, you know, I can just type in my favorite expression and you get, oh, if it lets me, there you go. And now we get this kind of point cloudy shape. And you could do that with audio reactive as well. You could have an audio reactive waveform moving over. So if I just went in and set up really quickly, I'll do this super fast. If I go like audio file in and then use a spectrum, and then I want to use a chop 2. So then I just want to fit this to, I don't know, something like whatever it is, fill. All right, cool. So I've got an audio reactive thing. So if I put that in, now I've got this audio wave, right? So that kind of, you can do it that way as well. And now we've got two, and if I put that into a feedback like I did before, then you'll get that kind of nice, you know, audio over time kind of setup. Does that make sense? Super fast explanation, sorry. Yeah, so where was I? Yeah, so I think last but not least, let's just quickly show you. So this is 5 million points, so things might go a little bit crazy. But this is just to quickly show how powerful you can actually make this. So just like 2 minutes of that, and then I think we're done. So this bit here, in fact, that little section there, I'm just going to save the file with that in so you can see it. Cool. So this, oh, here we go. So this is the project that we're working on currently. You can see here it's not very fast. But I'm going to turn off cooking for it because it's so heavy. Right, cool. So here we go. So actually, and I'm going to turn off the background. So you can see here that this is an example of some of the techniques we went through today. So inside here, I've got this point blend. These are all the different point clouds, and they all just blend through a switch. So you can blend between multiple point clouds there. And then we're sending that into some noise, which then animates. So you can do some animation. So this is like a big example of what we've been up to. And then you can see the camera blending system, which is, we have 15 cameras with 15 lookouts. And each camera and lookout is sequenced. But the problem with sequencing is that it kind of makes the camera stop and then continue again. So what we did was we converted those using the object chop and resampled and joined all of those positions together. And then we filtered them to smooth out all the camera moves. So it feels more like the camera's moving on a camera path. So that's a good way of kind of tricking the camera blend into just not stopping and making it smoother, and giving more smooth movement. So, and yeah, and the same with the look-ats as well. The look-ats had to be smoothed as well. So that gives you this nice smooth, smooth movement through the point cloud. And then again, it's just instancing. So we went through the environment map. We did the instancing today. There's some render passes with depth of field, SSAO. And as we go through to the end, there's a level or two. But yeah, it's pretty much all the techniques that we went through today are what builds up this project. And that's the one that was from the very first slide from today. So cool.